Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
It's a memory keeper. It's a way to snapshot a piece of your life, to then be able to go back and remember it or to share it with other people, especially if somebody's not with you in that moment. You get to capture it and keep it forever.
Podcasting remotely can be a real pain. It's quite challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Zencastr has this all-in-one web-based platform and makes the process really quick and easy. That's the way it should be, right? Just focus on the podcast. So let's talk about the quality and the challenge of recording online. So Zencastr gives crystal clear sound and really nice HD video. I know I don't use it, but it's there. Now, that's not even to mention how easy it is to use. Like even for my guests that aren't even that tech savvy. There's nothing to download. They just click on the link and start recording. Zencastr is all about making your podcasting experience easy, and everything from local recording to automatic post-production in the tool. You don't have to leave your browser to get the episode done. Maybe you want to make podcasts as well. I mean, I think it's a great idea personally. Obviously, I'm running one. I think you should make one too. It's easy. Just do it. I actually use Zencastr. If it sounds great, that's because the platform works. And if it sounds like crap, that's because I've done something wrong. But Zencastr really does give me amazing quality from my guests. If you go to zencastr.com/pricing, blah, 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 and enter this promo code, look, it's already long and confusing, and I'll just make it easier by putting the link and the promo code in the episode description. If you do that, you get 30% off your first 3 months. So that's actually pretty sweet. So look in the description for the link and the promo code, and then you get 30% off to start doing your own podcast. Do it. Go for it. Zencastr. Glorious. Okay, so Randi-Lee, is it Bowslaugh? How do you say your last name?
Bowslaugh.
Bowslaugh. Bowslaugh. Okay, I'm a Canadian. I say bow. So Bowslaugh.
I'm Canadian too.
What?
Yeah.
Where are
I'm
you?
like 2 hours from Toronto. I'm by Niagara Falls. I'm in Welland.
Ah, okay. Okay, I didn't know. Okay, this is great.
Surprise!
Hi, neighbor. I'm like 200 kilometers away from you or something. I don't even know.
I know. When you were like, oh yeah, I'm going to be going back to Toronto. I'm like, I go there all the time.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Totally gonna get to know you. And I haven't seen the photos you sent. So what I'm going to do is...
Yes, that's right.
Right.
I don't even remember what I sent.
Well, yeah, that happens a lot because people send the photos and then usually it takes a few weeks to kind of get there. And then we discover. So, shall we go to your first photograph and then learn all about you?
Sure.
That is a sweet portrait. So it's a professional looking portrait. You're in a studio of some sort. Your chin is on your hand. Your hair is
purple.
This beautiful, violet, brown, purple. Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice.
Thanks.
And did you get the hair done for the photo shoot or?
No, I just really like purple hair. It just doesn't stay very long, so it's hard to keep it up.
Right now, you don't have purple hair.
No, right now, I think it's almost my natural color. All the colors run out of it.
Okay. Amazing. The background is this very ash tan color. There's a shadow that could be from a chair or something behind you. You're wearing a nice black sweater with stars. Your knees are up. So it's a very kind of, it's a strange pose to put your hand on your chin on your hand like that. But you're looking right at the camera. You've got beautiful eyes. Look at that.
Thanks.
Very nice. Okay. So the title of this photo is Headshot for Podcasts.
Yeah. So that's like the one that I use that for everything. It's also the cover picture for my book I released last year, Embracing Me. And I'm not in a studio. I'm actually at one of my clients' houses because I'm also a personal trainer.
What?
And
Okay.
she does photography, but she's never actually done like portraits of people before. She usually does landscapes and animals, that kind of thing. And I was like, hey, can you do this for me? She's like, sure, I'll try. And it turned out beautifully.
The
So
light is very pretty.
yeah, we went around her house in different lights, and she was opening curtains and closing curtains and moving the chair. I think she was having a lot of fun with it. I was having fun with it too. And then
Sure.
we tried a few different poses, and the leg up with the hand thing, like you were saying, was for the book. I just thought, because the book is embracing me, and it's about like loving yourself. So I'm trying to like keep myself all like in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, your book. Okay, fantastic. Your first book?
No, that's maybe number 5.
Okay.
It's my third nonfiction.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so my background is creative writing, which I got at Concordia in
Oh,
Montreal. So why don't you talk to us about your how you landed as an author?
yeah. So I've been writing my whole life. I used to write like a newspaper for my house about what show I was watching and make
For
my
your
mom read it.
house?
Yeah, I'd make my mom read it. And my aunt, if she was over, my grandma. Yeah,
Nice.
it was nothing real special, but it was special to me.
For sure.
Um, and, and I'd write like little skits and plays and make my cousin act them out with me. So
Nice.
I've always liked writing. And then as a teenager, I would write a lot of poetry and use that as my coping mechanism for my depression. And so my very first book, I released it in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just all the poems that I'd written as a teenager, because I didn't want to throw them out, but I didn't want to leave them in my basement collecting dust.
Right.
So I wanted to do something with them. And so
Wow.
that's what I did. After I published that first book, I'm like, oh, I like this. This is great. I'm going to do it again and
Nice.
again and again and again and again.
Okay, so your most recent title is called, okay, what's it called again? Please remind me.
Well, my most recent nonfiction,
Yeah,
which the one we were talking about, is called Embracing Me.
Embracing Me. Okay, so I'm mostly a nonfiction writer. I'm essentially a nonfiction writer.
Oh,
So, what walk us through this book? Like, what if somebody who's listening, you want to inspire a listener to kind of go out and get this book. Why did you write this book?
to help other people feel not alone when they're dealing with their mental illness.
Mm,
So it talks about my journey with depression, but more importantly, it talks about how I came to terms with it. So I like to say I have depression. Depression doesn't have me. And that's like my favorite saying about it
mm,
now, because at first it feels like this big flaw, like something is wrong with me, like there's this thing I need to hide, this big old illness that needs to be hidden away, locked in a closet. And it doesn't.
mm,
It's just a
mm-hmm.
piece of who I am. It doesn't rule me. But it took time to come to that. And so I wanted to share that with other people and share what coping strategies I had used, and shared that if you want to go to therapy, that's okay. If you want to take medication, that's okay. You got to do what works for you.
Yep.
And then on the flip side of that, I wanted people who are maybe they're not dealing with a mental illness themselves, but a family member is, and they want to understand them more. So this book can kind of show them what their family member might be thinking, or
Mm.
feeling, and how your language to them can either hurt them or help them.
Things seem to be improving over time, right? So, especially now, there is a consciousness around mental health, treating mental health. Of course, you're going to run into people who are just kind of dumb and have stupid ideas, but I'd be really surprised and shocked if I'm surprised and shocked when somebody doesn't just go like, meh, okay, yeah, mental health issues, whatever.
Yeah, you're right. It has become more discussed and more aware about the fact that it's real. But there's still this big disconnect between having it and getting proper support for it.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how it's been in Hong Kong or in other parts of Canada, since we're both Canadian, but here in the region I live, it is hard to get appropriate mental health care,
Okay.
because it's not funded the same way as our physical care. And even chronic illnesses, physical chronic illnesses are also a hard one to get proper care for. If it's not an immediate or visible illness, then it's not taken as seriously by our healthcare professionals. You don't get to the psychiatrist as quickly as you should. You don't, and I mean, with medication, it takes time to find the right one and the right dosage
Yep.
as well. So, I mean, that's a struggle all on its own. But to get the
Yeah.
therapy side of things, it's not an easy process. If you do manage to get a referral, you're on a wait list for who knows how long. If you are able to pay for it, that's great. But most insurances don't cover enough for more than a couple of sessions, and a couple of sessions don't do you much. So you're right. There's a lot more awareness. I think a lot more people are okay with the fact that it's around, but there's still this big lack of real proper support for it.
So the podcast has had a few counselors, a few clinicians, a few therapists, because the podcast reflects what my interest is in. So when you said, oh, it takes a while to figure out what your treatment modality or approach is, like for some people, it might just be therapy. And for some people, it might be medication. Yeah, for me, the therapy was kind of like, okay, well, you seem to be okay, but everything that's happening is just physiological. So for me, it just happens to be medication. Okay. So how does your book wrap around that? Like, how does your book approach that?
So the book, because it's nonfiction, it's my story. So
Okay.
I'm not a therapist. I have worked in social services. I have taken oodles of psychology classes in college, university. So I do have a bit of a background, and I do put some research into the book. But I like to preface by saying, it's all from a personal perspective,
Which is important.
But yeah, and so the book talks about, there's an entire chapter on therapy and an entire chapter on medication. Because for some people, there is a stigma around one or the other or both, where it's, if I admit, and this was one of my biggest issues, if I admit that I have this mental illness, that means I am a failure at life. That's obviously not true. This is, like I said, this is how I was processing things. I'm a failure at life because I see myself as a horrible person, or that I shouldn't be here. And if I reach out for help, I'm admitting that I am not perfect. Nobody is perfect, but I have a perfectionist complex.
Okay.
And so the one chapter around therapy talks about how it came to a point where I had to go and talk to a therapist, because I had made a plan to end my life. And I was like, ooh, there's a whole plan here, and it's a pretty easy to do plan. And yep, I got to go talk to somebody. And so it talks about how you can give yourself permission to do this, because I think that a big problem is that many people are like me. They don't want to admit that there is a problem. And that goes for people having heart attacks too. They don't, a lot of times people go, oh, no, I'm fine. Meanwhile, they're in the middle of a heart attack. So this isn't just mental health that this happens to. It happens with a lot of different illnesses or diseases. And we have to give ourselves permission to go and seek help when we need it, whether it's for a heart attack or for our mental health. And then on the medication side, I approach it kind of like how you were talking about, where it's like, is this a physiological thing? Will medication kind of fix what is going on? Will it give me the right amount of hormones that I need, or whatever? Because for some people, that's what's needed. And that is one of the things that helped me. So I did the combination of both medication and therapy, because without the medication, I wasn't going to absorb the therapy as much as I could with it. And same goes for my kid. He's been to therapy many years, and when he wasn't taking medication or wasn't on the right medication, it was a lot harder for his therapist to get across the information to him. Whereas now that he is on the right stuff, they're cruising through their therapy sessions, and the time between sessions is much longer than before. So yeah, you said it before. You have to do what works for you, is basically the bottom line. If you need both, that's fine. If you need one or the other, that's fine. Like you have to figure it out. You just got to play with it.
Mhm.
All these different
So once
tools.
again, so the listener will have the title of your book in their heads. What is it again, please?
Embracing me.
Is there a subtitle, or is it just embracing me?
Nope. Just embracing me.
Fantastic. Would you like to move on to the next photo?
Sure.
Unless you want to add something else.
We're good. I can't remember what the next photo is. So tell me what I sent you.
Okay, so it's called Speaking, and it's okay. So you're standing. I'm assuming that's you. It looks like you. You're standing in a room that is probably air conditioned because you've got a shawl over your shoulder. You're holding
Oh
a.
yeah, okay.
You're you remember the shawl.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're standing on like what looks like a dance floor. Behind you is a really tiny stage with a drum kit on it, and I guess there was a small band. The band isn't on the stage, but there's a guitar, there's the amps, there's a screen, there's the lights kind of on the background. So you're just it's a medium shot of you, so we see your full body length, sort of standing, speaking to, like you're kind of aiming to the people off camera. I guess you're talking to an audience, a member, or to the group. Yeah, it looks like a not a huge venue. It looks like a small venue from the little that I can tell, because you can't see very much of the dance floor or anything. But so yeah, speaking. What's this?
Yes. So I love speaking in front of people.
Okay,
It's a
nice.
big part of what I do, which is why I go on so many podcasts.
Okay,
When I was little, I was going to be a famous actor because I love being in front of people. I love sharing my story. I love it all.
okay,
So that picture is actually from my very first 2017, my very first book launch. And so there was the publisher that I went through. They did like this little event for all of the authors that had published that year.
oh great.
And it was also a fundraiser event. I can't even remember what it was for because 2017 is so long ago now.
Like
But there
3,000
was
years
like
ago.
right. And so there was dancing, there was like a silent auction, there was a bunch of different things, and so that was my chance. I got up, I got to speak, and I just, because I love speaking so much, and I've spoken in front of other groups, but I couldn't find any of the other pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I went with that one. And yeah, I just love speaking in front of people, and that's where I want to take my career direction, is to speaking to groups, either about mental health or writing or anything really. I will
Okay.
talk about anything.
Okay. Well, that's, I mean, certainly in my experience of you, you seem to be using your words very nicely. Bravo. I'm
Thank you.
enjoying this. So how does because to be a writer is a sort of a lonely path, pursuit. Like it's a very solo kind of, usually it's not a social pursuit. And but you understand that you're producing it for an audience or for a reader, and that is like always kind of aware of the dynamic of reaching an audience, and compare that to theater and drama where the audience is right there, and then compare that with speaking, like public speaking, where you can see, like you're very much, you're talking to the people directly.
Yes. They're all interconnected. They're all different forms of art,
Mm-hmm.
really. So I love it all. I even love drawing and singing. I'm just not very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I love all art stuff.
Nice.
Um, and so you're right. When you're writing a book itself, it's very much a singular job. I don't have anybody else around me. I'm usually just in my office at home by myself or with my cats, usually my
Mm-hmm.
cats. Um, and so you do it by yourself, but you're doing it for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping that purpose in mind is so important while you're doing it, because once the book is written, it doesn't end there. So being an author is so much more than just writing the book, right? Like we have to come on podcasts like this, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where the public speaking comes in, and the going out to different places, doing events and things. That's where you can get that interaction, which is a nice balance, because sometimes I just don't want to people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice balance between being able to get out there, do the speaking, doing the podcast or YouTubes, and then also having my alone time
Yeah.
and just focusing on what I want to focus on.
Right. Well, I've had a few authors on the podcast. I mean, authors are good because you've spent a long time, chewing or going through your thoughts, and then are articulating it into a book form or something. So most authors want to talk about their book, and first time authors are usually a little bit surprised that they think, oh, I wrote the book, it got published, and for a month the excitement and the energy was there to maintain the momentum, but then after a while it just kind of fizzles, and then they kind of learn the hard way that, well, it's hustle. It's like you have to go out there and you have to talk to people, and you have to kind of, it doesn't just run away by itself. Like it needs like that curating, or that it's like a farmer. You have to kind of, you have to constantly tend to your book to have people learn
Yeah.
about it. So this particular book, when did you publish it?
Which one? The
Uh,
one we were talking about before,
yeah,
or
yeah.
the oh, okay, the
Oh,
one we were talking about before.
well, how about all of them?
Yeah,
All of them. Talk about all of
all
them.
of.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot of them.
Do it.
Because I like to say I follow my dopamine. So I have written, I think somebody counted, because I said it was over 10. Somebody
Oh,
counted and said I had
nice.
14. Counted, I said I had 14.
Uh,
Because clearly I can't keep track of it. But I like to say I follow my dopamine. So I have the 3 nonfiction books, published in 2017, 2018, and then last year, 2021.
Amazing.
Um, and so 2 of them about mental health, and then the other one is about raising my kid that has autism.
Okay.
And again, it's that wanting people to not feel alone,
Right.
because the worst thing is feeling alone, because you lose a lot of friends,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't just go out with them whenever they want. You can't just find a random babysitter. Like it takes a lot of work and a lot of doctor's appointments. And then I've written a handful of kids books, because they're so much fun to write. And I have a grandson, so I could write those and I could read them to him
You have a
too. So
grandson.
I do. He's 2 and he is
You
adorable.
look and sound so young. Like you must have had
I
your
am.
first child when you were 8. What?
No, my husband had his first child when he was
Got it.
16.
Got it.
So it's my
What?
stepdaughter.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow.
It's my stepdaughter, but we've been together for 15 years.
I
So
love
I
it.
mean,
I love it. I mean, I love the. So a couple of things that kind of feed into this. One is one of the podcast guests I had a long time ago was, she was kind of, we're talking about the importance of diversity in a commercial context, right? And
okay.
and she's like, well, we know that the data is out there that the real true diversity in an organization or in a network or whatever in life is the strength. And so I love meeting people where the story, there's a kind of picture of what a normal, well, no, not normal, what a typical person is like. And that picture is, oh, no, mental health is perfectly fine. The family looks like X. The growing up looks like Y. All that stuff. But actually, that's just one little slice of the 1,000 different configurations. And you're super young, and you have a granddaughter. Amazing.
Grandson. Yeah.
Grandson. Amazing.
He's awesome. I love him. He's
Aw.
2.
Aw. Okay. So I also really, really, I mean, I just learned a great new phrase, which is you follow your dopamine.
Yes.
Ah, dude, that's amazing. That's great. So talk about that for a
Thanks.
second. Talk about that for a second.
So, because I go on all of these podcasts and I talk about authoring,
Mm-hmm.
being an author, it's always, oh, what do you write? Because most authors do stick to a certain genre.
Yeah.
They write nonfiction, or they write kids books, or they write whatever.
Romance.
Romance, exactly. Sci-fi, horror. I don't stick to a genre. Now, I definitely haven't done certain ones,
Mm-hmm.
but I've done the nonfiction. I've done scary stories. I love horror, all things horror. So I've
Mm.
done that. I've done the kids books. I've done social stories. I've done teach your kid how to read stories. So like I follow what makes me happy.
Nice.
And the other question I get a lot is, do you write every day? No, because my dopamine doesn't tell me to write every day. So no, I don't.
Mm.
And people are surprised that I have 14 books out, because when I'm in a great mood, when I'm in like a high, I just go and I can get out a lot of content. And so I use it to my advantage and do that and get out as much as I can. And when I'm having a low, maybe I just brainstorm some ideas, clean my house,
Mm-hmm.
play with my animals, hang out with my kid. Like there's other things to life than just work.
Yep.
And so I like to follow what makes me happy. And so I follow my dopamine.
That is okay. So here's how what you say resonates in my noodle. I feel that because you have had to kind of think about and process and deal with your own mental health, and in the same way with myself, for me it was since like 2009, since the financial crisis. So that was
Oh,
the
yes.
that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Yep.
And since then, I've had to kind of develop the understanding, the language, and the concepts, but also the kind of the models and the examples that lets me talk about and think about my own mental health landscape in the same way as you did, right? So you're like, you follow your dopamine. Now, do you feel that in order to become that kind of person and to have that kind of understanding, that you kind of need to go through the roller coaster of mental health issues?
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that. Um, I'm not going to say that you need to, because I mean, people can do amazing things without going through tumultuous times.
Mm-hmm.
It's my new favorite word,
Okay.
tumultuous. Um, but it definitely helps, because when you have gone through really hard times or dark times or painful times, it makes you appreciate the good stuff all the more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, and I mean that what's that movie? What's that movie with all the emotions? The kids movie.
Jackie Brown.
No.
No, I don't know. No, no, I know. I think it's called Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Inside Out. Yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
So that if you look at Inside Out, it shows it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Without sadness, there is no joy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as much as you try to avoid the sadness, how do you understand what joy is without it? So I don't think you have to have gone through such extreme
Mm-hmm.
horrible times, but you do have to have gone through something.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, to bring it back, actually, you said your husband has diabetes.
Yeah.
And so my brother has type 1 diabetes. So he has diabetes since the age of 7 or 8. And like he has a really, he's had to build an understanding of blood sugar and glucose levels and, management, that kind of stuff, because he's had to live through it. And so, if he was on a podcast and he, had to come up with a phrase, and if that was his way of expressing himself, I'm sure he would have, follow the insulin. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Yep. I totally get that.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to go to the next photo. Aw, way to speak of the devil. Okay. So, you see, now that I know that you're Canadian, Ontario no less. So it's a photograph where the photographer is probably about 30 feet away from you. We're using a sort of slightly telephoto lens. It's in the fall. It's definitely Canadian autumn. You guys aren't wearing, it must have been a warm day because you aren't wearing like super warm clothes, but there's a nice man with a haircut that is very similar to mine, uh, kissing the top, or it looks like kissing the top of the head of, I'm assuming that's you. Just very beautiful. So the tone of the image is all browns and autumn and grays and your
I
arm.
remember that photo now.
Of course, you were there. And it's by, I guess, by a lake because in the background you can just see a flat area. So maybe it's a lake or it could be a field. It could be a farmer's field. Probably October, I guess. September. Yeah, family. Go for it.
Yes. So that is my husband and me.
Aw.
We got family photos done not last year, the year before last. So it's almost 2 years ago.
Before COVID.
In the middle of, I think during one of the random openings of COVID.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yes, because my grandson was born during that time because we had him in some of the photos.
Ah, nice.
And so it was a really nice day. It was November, the very beginning of November, which is shocking that it was so nice that day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cool breeze, but it was really nice. We got lucky because I was worried it was gonna snow,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I don't want to do snow.
Love Canada. I love it.
Yeah. And we went to, what's it called, Queenston Heights, which I had actually never been there, even though it's in my, like, it's where I live. I've never actually been to it. People tell me it's so nice, and it was. And yeah, we took some family photos, and the photographer was like, do this, do that. And so she's like, well, kiss the top of her head. And of course we're laughing because we are not a lovey-dovey couple. I'm just like, yeah, I love you, but you stay over there on that side of the couch and I'll stay on this side of the couch. Yeah.
Okay, so somebody listening to this from Hong Kong, for example, is not used to seeing the ground like that, where it's like matted, tamped, short grass and covered with these orange, brown, dead leaves. And behind it looks like a maple tree, which no frame of reference. There's like the grays and the orange, the beautiful brown of it all. And it's like the image itself is quite beautiful because it's like you're in a space where there's a lot of room around you and it feels very open. And it's like, it's only you two, like in the photographs, you can see in the background evidence of like human construction. Like there's a path and there's like a deck and all this stuff, but it's an intimate moment. And I don't know, because you're a couple, he probably whispered something, I don't know, a little kind of funny because your laughter is obviously genuine.
Yeah, I think he said something about how like, this is so weird. We don't like being this close.
Okay, well,
he probably said something like that.
Right. So the photo looks great. It's a great photo. But why is this photo one of the windows we're looking through?
Because it's cute. No, because it's a big part of my life. Like, I spend a lot of time with my family. I tend to like my family. I say tend to because sometimes they bug me.
Right.
As they always do. But I wouldn't be where I am today without my family, especially my husband. He has been with me through thick and thin. Like I said, it's been 15 years together with him, 10 years married this year. And so we've been together our entire adult lives.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I would not still be here. I wouldn't have written all the books I've written. I wouldn't be doing all the things that I'm doing without his support. And see, he won't get a big head because he never listens to the stuff I do.
So we can say whatever we want.
That's right. And that's how you know it's genuine too.
Sure.
But that's how we are. We're silly. And I love that about us. It's just like we tease each other, but It's not anything ever bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this chemistry that just works. And we always joke saying, you could never have been with anybody else because
Right.
nobody else would put up with your crap.
Sure. Well, luckily you found somebody who would put up with your crap. That's nice. So
Yeah.
if we pull back, how does somebody either who gets strength from family process this in terms of writing or in terms of mental health, of the themes of what we've been talking about, or somebody who doesn't have family, how do they process what you're saying?
Ooh, that's a very thought-provoking question.
Uh-oh. Abandoned
I
ship.
know. Oh no. I don't think I like you anymore. So I think it's easier to process it if you have your family, if your family is supportive.
Sure.
If you have a toxic family, then it's a lot harder because you don't have that support around you. But when you're dealing, because we're talking about mental health, when we're dealing with our mental health, it's a lot easier to deal with a mental illness while you have support around you.
Mm.
And if you're lucky enough for that to be your family, all the better. But maybe it's just friends. Hopefully it's somebody. But it does give you a reason to keep going. And that's such a big part of coping, is having one reason to keep going, whether that is a family member, a friend, a pet,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's relying on you to get up in the morning and feed them. It gives you that sense of a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a sense of purpose, then there's a reason to get up in the morning. There's a reason to seek help, and there's a reason to just keep on going. And so without family, it does become harder. But like I said, there's pets, there's family, there's friends, there's maybe you really love your job. There's other things that you can utilize to get that same sort of purpose.
Okay. Well, so from the professional work that I do, like from the day job stuff, what we like to say in terms of service leadership is that, and it really is like, that's what makes what it is maybe to be human is our connections to others. And even if you're a hermit, right? Even hermits sometimes need to connect, like, one of my good friends, he described himself like, he self-describes himself as slightly introverted, and sometimes, especially with COVID, it was bad because he's kind of withdrawing even more. But he had like his wife, and he has like his community. In his case, it's volleyball, of people who, it's like his community. Like, you have to find your people.
That's a good suggestion. Got to find your people. And I think with the internet now, it's a lot easier. So, like my kid, I said earlier, he's got autism, and he has a lot of anxiety. So he's kind of a hermit.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't leave the house that often. He's gotten better now. Again, medication therapy, huge help. But he's kind of a hermit. So for a teenager, yeah. And the internet has helped so much. He's got a group of friends now that he found. I've even talked to some of their moms online, just, make sure they're actually teenagers.
Right. Right.
And you got to be safe.
Yep.
But he's got a group of friends, and they play games together, like video games together. They'll just sit on a chat together, watch videos together, like the same things that you would do in person.
Yeah.
But they're able to do it online because they live all over the place. Most of his friends are American.
Okay.
And so he wouldn't have been able to find his people here. He never really did. He has a couple of friends here that he can see in real life, but really he didn't find his people until he was able to find them online.
Right.
So it's so nice that that's able to happen. Gotta say, as a mom, I was super worried at first. And,
Mm-hmm.
there's some people that I've had to be like, no, you're not talking to them. That is not a real child. But I mean, if you take the right safety precautions and things, it can be wonderful.
Okay, so one of the things that a previous guest, who was also an author, she had written books, mostly of children's books, and yeah, she also is dealing with a child who has autism, and she just sort of described, how, in a way, you have to invent your treatment or the coping mechanism to deal with your child by yourself, and feeling alone and that kind of stuff. So do you feel that with your son, like how early on did you recognize that he did have autism, and that did you start pulling in the resources to help you cope?
So me and my husband, we realized it when he was really young. Not necessarily that it was autism, but that it was something.
Yeah.
It took the system a lot longer to give him that diagnosis, and we went through a lot of hoops and a lot of wrong diagnosis, which is fairly common.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we finally got it, it was a relief because we knew something was up. We knew that there was something going on that he couldn't tell us that we needed to figure out in order to help him.
Right.
So for us, it was this big sigh of relief going, oh, that's why. Wonderful. Because now that we know, now we can get support. Because around here, you can't really get the support until you have the diagnosis. I don't know how it is in other provinces
or
in America.
It's probably the same all over the world.
Probably. And so you can't start putting them on wait lists for the right support until you have the actual diagnosis, which is frustrating because the wait lists alone are years long at times.
Yeah.
So you could be waiting a very long time for help that you already know they need, but you
have to go through the system.
Yeah, there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Mm-hmm.
But once we were able to do that, the one thing that was a lot faster was that the school was able to then implement an IEP. And I mean, I could go on about the school. The school is
IUP.
Anyway,
what's an IUP?
IEP. So Individual Education Plan.
Nice.
And I think in the States it's called a 504, or it's something similar to that. But it's basically, how can we support this child in school based on their needs? And which is fantastic because they do have different needs. So they were able to put him in a smaller class size. They were able to give him, he can get a scribe to write his stuff down. He gets longer time for writing tests. So there's different things that they were able to put in place at the school level that once the diagnosis was there, that they couldn't do before having the diagnosis, which again is frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I know my kid needs this help. Just do it.
Right.
But I get it from a funding standpoint because it always comes down to funding.
Mm-hmm.
The government funds our education system, so there has to be certain things in place before you'll get the extra money, because when they are diagnosed with something, then they do get a little bit extra for the students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a big relief. We got him on, as soon as we did that, we got him on a bunch of wait lists. We filled out all sorts of paperwork for all the different programs, and then we didn't really sit around waiting for the wait list. We did what we could at home, did tons of research. But it really was a big old waiting game.
Right. Well, it's also, I mean, there's like, what's his name? The wilderness or survival guy. He's always drinking his own pee, whatever his name is. So
I think my father-in-law.
Bear Grylls, that's it. So Bear Grylls, he talks about, having to have a certain tenacity, that things aren't really given to us, that we have to kind of have that will to go out there and make things happen. Because to be an author is to actually sit down and to make a narrative happen and to have the commitment to do that. So that practice and that tenacity is obviously inside you. Maybe the same thing that helps you, it might be a strange word to use to describe the writing process, but to push and to fight to complete a work is maybe part of the same fuel that you tap into to kind of push and fight to find the care that your son needs.
I actually think that's a great way to do it, because sometimes it really is fighting through to get your story written the way that you envision it to be. So I like that description.
Well done. You did a great job.
But thanks. But Yeah, no, I think that that's very true, and I had never thought about that before, but it it really did come down to tenacity with it. And at the beginning of the whole journey, it was not knowing what to do. So waiting for other professionals to tell me what to do because I didn't know. And yes, I was doing research, but there's only so far research can take you. Living life, I think, gives a better understanding. So really reaching out to people who have been there, done that
Yeah.
kind of thing was huge. And we talked about it before, finding your people. That's what I had to do. I had to find my people. I had to find other parents. And now most of my friends are parents of kids with something
Right.
because they added when you have to cancel on the last minute because your kid is having a meltdown. They're like, oh yeah, okay, get it. Right. But you do that with somebody who doesn't get it and they're just like, oh, you're so flaky. Well, it
Right.
has
Right.
nothing to
Right.
do with that. Or just, you have to be more strict with your kid. No, that's not it either.
That's not going to help.
That's
Yeah. Of
not
course not.
what, yeah. So it's learning all of these things and finding your people to help you along the way because doing it by yourself is so much more difficult
Hmm.
than finding your people to help you along the way. And now when I'm dealing with professionals or the school, especially the school, because at the beginning of this, the school would say, oh, we're going to put him in this class. Okay, you think that's best. We're going to do this. Okay, you think that's best. And I'm relying on them. But what I've learned over the years, and this is going to sound absolutely horrible, is the school just didn't want to deal with him.
Mm.
He was a difficult child to deal with because he had violent meltdowns when the anxiety would get too
Oh,
high.
okay. Okay.
Um, and it's nothing that we could have prevented in the past because we didn't know the triggers. We didn't know, like, we were all learning this stuff. And so I just kept saying to the school, okay, 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 because I thought that they had his best interest in mind.
Right.
But I don't think they did. Now, I don't think they were intentionally trying to push him off on other people, but they also weren't giving him a true opportunity to thrive in the class that he was put in because they wouldn't give him a long enough chance to adjust to a new class before pushing him to another different class that they thought would be better. And something that is true with most people with autism is routine
Hmm.
is huge. So constantly changing their school environment is not helpful. Yeah, that was very difficult to learn. And now when the school tries to tell me things, and I mean, he's in high school now, so it's a little bit easier. And the VP there is awesome. Most of the teachers are pretty awesome. Um, I say, no, we're not doing that. No, you're not going to take him out of that class. No, you're going to send the work home. Like, I don't care anymore. This is what's happening. I know how my kid learns best. I've given you all of his assessments and things over the years. I don't have to just agree with the school. And that was something I had to learn
Yep.
because I didn't realize that there was other choices. We even homeschooled for a while. So there are choices out there that aren't easy, but once you start learning and find your people and build up that tenacity, build up that resilience to all these stressful situations and dealing with all these professionals, it can get easier.
Well, there we go. Um, the photos, family, and you did it justice. Would you like to move on to the next photo?
Sure.
Right. The podcast just screams by because it's we're just talking about
I know.
your backyard. Oh, speaking of backyards, I love these photographs because they're so sweet. They're so Canadian. They're so perfect. Okay, so this one's called Horse.
Oh, yeah.
And so there are these two. So first of all, the field, the background, it's not a field, but just the sort of the environment.
Like a wood.
Yeah, is just there's green. It looks like a summer green. So some low trees, high grasses, and there are two horses. The one in the background, it's like the medium shot. So the horse is in pretty good size within the photograph. One is all white, and one is all brown with a black mane. The brown and the black mane is a little larger. And I see two people in the photograph. I can't tell who they are because they are wearing helmets. and glasses. Yeah. So, I mean, please decode this photo.
So I'm undercover. It's me and my kid.
Okay. Okay.
So that was last summer. I think it was September. It might have been August. So it was very toasty warm out. And we went on horseback riding. There's a lot of different trails around us. I wish I owned the horse, but I don't. We just went to one of the places that does horseback trail riding. I used to ride horses when I was younger. When my uncle lived in the area, he had a horse farm.
Oh,
So
wow.
loved riding horses. And my sister, she was taking care of a horse before, and so she would take my kid to go visit her horse a lot too. So we both have always loved horses. Not so much my husband. I got him on a horse once. He says he's never going back on.
So
But that's all right.
Is this riding here under the kind of the frame, the umbrella of like therapeutic riding, or is it just you're just riding?
We were just riding. We went on a private trail ride. So we had a guide that was guiding us through the trail ride. But you're right. There are a lot of therapeutic benefits of horse riding.
For sure.
And I've looked into it. The problem was that each time I'd remember to look into it, the classes would be full.
Okay. The plight of the parent.
They do fill up. Yes. But it's always a lot easier just to get in for a one-off trip. And actually, my kid has been bugging me again to book another horse ride. And I'm like, yes, I will. And it was gorgeous. It was a really nice day. It wasn't too humid. And we had a really fun time out. And the guide was really nice. And my kid was talking to my guide about what does the horse do this and that. And just, it was really cool.
What's the thread that you would tie from the first image of the portrait, the second image of you speaking about your first book in that like sort of that hall, and then the second image of you and your husband closer than you normally spend time together, and then this image. So, like, if there is a narrative, right? Like, if there is a kind of a story that connects.
Of course, there's a connection. It's things I love.
Okay. Okay.
That's the short, sweet answer. Things I love.
Chasing your dopamine.
Yes, exactly. Chasing my dopamine. It always comes back to that.
Nice.
So I love my family. I love speaking. I love writing. I love to follow my dopamine.
So how do you transpose and guide your son to follow and find his dopamine, even though that concept is not necessarily one that he would articulate himself?
Oh, so he's super verbal.
Okay.
He never shuts up, actually. Because some kids are nonverbal,
Right.
Or non-vocal. That's a new phrase that somebody had told me, which I thought was really cool. So non-vocal is they're not using words,
Right.
but they're still expressing themselves in different ways. So I thought that was super cool, because body language is a whole other language, really. So anyways, I wanted to share that because I thought that was cool when I learned it. But no, he is definitely a big follow your dopamine kind of guy too. He's an artist. So if he's in the art zone, it's like you can't even say anything to him because he's doing art. And so he's actually sold his art for the last few years to help raise money for his service dog, which we got a few years ago.
Nice.
And he gained a little following. So every year I take all his art. Well, not all of it, but we pick the best 12 pictures. We come up with a calendar and he sells the calendar.
Oh, excellent.
And recently, he has been, he had this math project that he had to do this year, and it was create like a Dragon's Den presentation. And he came up with this business idea that I thought was amazing. And I was like, hey, you could really do that. Because I love my kid and I want to believe he can do anything in the whole wide world, but I really just don't see him working for somebody else 40 hours a week. I can't even do that. I've done it and it's just like it sucks the life out of you. So I get it. So when he came up with this idea, I was like, wow, that's amazing. You could turn this into a real business. Like I'll help you turn this into a real business, because even though he's only 15, why can't he run his own business? There's no reason he can't. And if I can set him up now for the future, that's golden as any parent, especially as one of a kid with a disability. Like you worry about them when they get older. So the business idea keep you all in suspense. So the business idea is gender reveal boxes for the transgender community.
Okay.
And he came up with that idea and then said in each box, they'll get like whatever little goodies, magnets, buttons, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be a little sheet, a little info sheet that they can share with their friends and family of how to best support them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's nice.
And I was like, that's amazing. And because people like to party.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come out as a different gender, should be a big celebration. It should be you're coming to embrace yourself.
Sure.
Bring it on back to that first picture, to embrace yourself. And yeah, so we came up with that, and we're in the process right now of launching the website for it. It's called Accepting You. It'll be at acceptingyou.ca.
Okay. Great.
And he's even got the business cards in. We're getting the first products. Magnets and buttons are the first products that have been designed, and we're waiting for the actual product in hand. But yeah, it's coming along really nicely. We were hoping to launch it in June because it's Pride Month, but
yeah.
I mean, we still have a few weeks left of June, but I don't think it's going to be fully done this month, but it'll be a soft launch this month.
I think somebody who listens to you, and when I listen to you, there's something entrepreneurial about being an author, right? About sitting there,
yes.
And maybe nonfiction is the more entrepreneurial sort of approach. I don't know. That's maybe, but just listening to how you express yourself and your energy, and even here, just being so supportive of your son to kind of go, oh yeah, let's make this, let's put it together, and just being activated to kind of just do it. Like, good for you. I mean, like, this is exactly what makes me happy about the podcast, is meeting people who are like that, who say, well, you know what, let's just do it.
Well, that's how we roll. Let's just do it. I mean, you only live once, right? So my husband likes to say, go big or go home.
That's fantastic. So, okay, like, I want to give you the last couple of minutes because it's already been an hour, which is just astounding. Isn't that fun? I love it.
Time flies.
So how about you just take us on a ride, take us on an adventure, take us to school. How else do we inspire a listener to kind of go, okay, well, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to write that book or start that company or whatever. So I don't even know if that's a question, but how would you answer that?
It's a question. It can be a question. I would say something probably like, why not?
Okay.
Right? Like, and that seems like such a simple answer, but when you pose that question to people and say, well, why not? Why not now? Why won't you do it? It gets them thinking about all of the reasons why they shouldn't do it. And oftentimes they're not very good reasons. The most common reason is, well, I have to pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nobody said that you have to quit whatever job you're doing now to go pursue it. You can start a business while still working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot more work, but it's possible. And the goal is obviously to then quit that job and focus fully on the business. But I get it. We got to pay our bills. And that's how I started. I started just slowly, and I still work part-time in an office because I got to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm building my empire, I'm still able to provide the things that I need to provide for the household. And then the other biggest thing is, well, I don't have the time. Well, you're never going to find the time. There's never going to be the perfect time to start a business. There's never going to be a perfect time to write the book, never a perfect time to have that baby. Like that's what it comes down to. But if it's something that you have always wanted to do, then by saying I don't have the time, all you're doing is wasting the time that you do have, because we never know how long we have.
Right. And what about this idea that time isn't something that you have, it's something that you make. So you make time for something.
I have heard that. I'm not a big fan of that expression, simply because when I'm dealing with, say, my kid, or even when I'm having a bad day and I'm depressed,
okay,
I can't make time. My mental state won't let me make time. Or if my kid needs me, I can't make time. So yeah, he's 15, and most days he's cool with saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna play video games, you go do what you want. Like, he's upstairs right now playing video games, and when I go upstairs, we'll do some homework. But there are days when he's having a bad day and he wants mom, and that's totally fine. So if I have things planned that, I think, okay, I need to get the next chapter of this book edited because I've put it in my schedule and I've made time, because that's what they tell you, schedule it. But if something comes up,
Sure.
then something else comes up and it's more important, and that's fine. So I'm not a big fan of the make time
Okay.
in that way, but yeah, you do have to put it on your to-do list.
Okay.
If it's not there, it's never going to get done. And if you are a type of person who can make time, then all the more power to you. Do it. I'm the kind of person that if it's on my to-do list, it'll get done. It just might not get done on your schedule, but it'll get done on mine.
Oh, Randi-Lee. You're the first Randi-Lee I've ever met. Well done, you.
Oh, excellent. Yay, Mom.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This has been really great, and have a fantastic summer, fellow Canadian.
Thank you. I know it's warming up now. It's great, isn't it?
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.